Hello everyone! Look at this rocket! Isn't this amazing? I created this earlier, but using Procreate, which is the drawing app I usually use, we can now create a complex animation like this one since it got updated last week. So now we have a version 5. With this version, Procreate has changed a lot, so in today's video, I want to introduce all the new functions added to Procreate. Other than the animation I'm showing you right now, there are some other new functions like brushes and color palette, so I will be introducing all of these. But before we start, make sure to update your Procreate by going to your Apple Store on the iPad. And for those who haven't built Procreate yet, I really suggest getting one. As I have many tutorial videos on Procreate, this is the app I can't recommend highly enough. And it can be purchased for around $10, so please consider getting one. And here's a list of everything I will introduce today. There have been some small updates too, but I will talk about only ones that I find it a must for you to check out. I also put timestamps in the description box, so you could just skip to the part you want to check out as well. You could also take a screenshot of this screen and use it for a review later too. But yeah, let's go ahead and master Procreate 5 together with me. Alright, first, there has been some changes to canvas settings. You're going to add a new canvas from the plus button at the upper right, but there has been a new black plus button added there. Here, you can now adjust details, including not only height and width of a canvas, which we already had them from before, but what I want you to pay attention to now is here on the left side, we have a new category called color. You can adjust your color here, and there used to be RGB only, but now we have many kinds of RGB, and we can now draw using CMYK as well. This is such a useful function, especially for those who want to print out their work, because when you print your work with RGB, there may be some color changes that you don't like, but if you set CMYK before you start working on your work, you won't have to worry about it anymore. So be sure to remember the CMYK function. Also, time-lapse settings have changed as well. As you can see here, now you can export in 4K. It seems like you can export in such a high resolution. Time-lapse is a function that connects a series of your drawings by fast-forwarding from the start to the end. From the settings, there is export in time-lapse option. And when you tap it, for instance, I have my drawing of Christmas card with Santa Claus, but it connects everything from the stage of rough sketches to that of coloring by fast-forwarding. So it shows you the process of how I drew this card at a glance, which is an excellent thing about this function. I've seen some people putting this kind of videos on YouTube too, so feel free to give it a try by exporting it in 4K. Alright, next I'm going to talk about color palette and shapes. I want to explain using this drawing on a rocket, but first about shapes. It's a function that turns any shapes you draw, like oval shapes, rectangles, and straight lines and holes, into a perfect shape. When you wanted to make this shape into a perfect circle, you had to touch the screen with your left index finger and drag, but this changed with version 5. There is a category that says Edit Shapes where you tap it and then it automatically turns any shapes into a perfect shape. This is such a helpful function. What's more, as you can see, some dots, which look kind of like paths, are anchor points, and you can edit them later. So you can make some oval shapes here and edit them later. Next, about the color palette. When coloring using Procreate, from the color button at the upper right, You can throw in any colors like this to color or change the color. You could switch your color easily like this, as you can see. But since it's a hassle to pull out the color palette every time you use it, with Procreate 5, you can now have it separated. By pulling out the tab above the color here, the color palette gets separated like this. So you could just put it on your left, at the bottom or top here, or wherever you want. And you can choose a color, and from the button at the upper right, you can just throw your color into the canvas like this. I find this function intuitive and great. Also, there has been a history option added at the bottom of this color palette. You can now choose a color based on the history of your choice of colors. This is really helpful. We didn't have this function, not letting us see the previous history of colors. So I used to struggle a lot not being able to pull out the color you chose last time or last previous time. But from now on, there will be a max of 10 colors reflected on your history. So if you want to find the color you used last time, you could just select it by going to your history. There's also this thing called color harmony function added. The tab in the middle is color harmony, and what it does is that it recommends a color that would match with the color selected, for red in this case. As you can see here, this small circle is following the bigger one, but that's the color it recommends. So by choosing the color right next to the little circle, orange for instance, and throwing it into the canvas, you could easily have the color or an analogous color that goes along with the red. It's a great function. So even if you haven't studied colors, you could just use this color harmony function, which lets you draw with a stylish design and a grand color scheme. It's set as analogous color on the left, but when you tap it, it shows you options such as complementary colors and triangles. If you tap complementary colors, for instance, it suggests you the opposite color, so green for red and yellow for blue, for example. I selected complementary colors just now, but there are other options such as double complementary colors and triangles, so choose whichever you like from here. Okay, next I want to talk about the selection area. I want to show you a demo using this design I created last time. But first, I'm going to copy and paste this butterfly. Then when you want to copy, tap the Select tool to have it selected at the upper left and circle this butterfly. Once you circle it, click the arrow tool on the right and swipe with 3 fingers from top to bottom on the screen, where it would then show you copy and paste option. And now the butterfly is copied and pasted here. So this is the copy and paste function, which is really useful. But if you unlock the selection area, copy and paste the butterfly again, you'd have to make the selection area all over again. And this is such a hassle, because once you unlock the selection area, you'd have to copy and paste and create the selection area. But with Procreate 5, we can now save this selection area. So just like we did it last time, I have this butterfly selected and click on Save and Import on the bar at the bottom. There is a plus button here, and when you tap it, the selection area gets saved. Those who use Photoshop already are probably familiar with this. But what it does is that even when you unlock the selection area like this, by tapping the Select button again, select the selection area from the toolbar where you find the Save and Import buttons. It then creates the selection area for the butterfly, even though it may be difficult to see. So all you need to do is to choose the arrow tool and move it around. Instead of circling the selection area every time you want to, you could just do it from the Save button here to import it again. And this is how the selection area can be saved. This is really handy, so make sure to remember. Next, I want to introduce a clone tool. This is similar to the copy and paste function mentioned earlier, but there's a new function called clone added to the adjustment panel here. So select that at the bottom, where it will then show you an oval shape on the screen like this, which is what we call a target tool. So place the target tool on top of the butterfly, and while keeping it there, color the parts you want to with your Apple Pencil. This way, the butterfly you set it as a target tool gets copied and colored at the same time. Isn't this really awesome? There's a copy tool in Photoshop, and it's pretty much the same thing. I feel like more functions you can find in Photoshop are added to Procreate. So even with a complex drawing like this, you just need to specify the target and color using your Apple Pencil to copy. This is useful, especially when drawing a large group of people or patterns or something like that. But you can pretty much do so many things depending on your creativity, so make sure to master the use of this clone tool. Alright, next I'll talk about brushes. There are so many new brushes, and there's a function called Brush Studio where you can adjust details for your brush added as well. So I'll introduce them here. So for instance, I'm going to write something random using the brush called PhraseNet, which we have by default. This is the brush before I customize anything, but I'm going to customize this from now on. And when customizing, swipe left to copy just in case. Always make sure to save the original brush. When you tap the one you copied, it will open the screen called Brush Studio, where you can adjust details for your brush. We are going to adjust details on the left side, but the right half of the screen is for preview. So you can check what your brush will look like here with your current settings. If you swipe with 3 fingers to left and right, it disappears, letting you write with a new brush. And when we adjust the settings on the left side like this, for instance, can you tell that the brush on the left side is also adjusted? So whatever you do with these sliders on the left is reflected on the brush on your right side. You can adjust the settings and see what it looks like on the right side. And once you find your favorite brush, you can tap on the down button and go back to the main menu. And if you want to see your preview in a color brush, you can do so by choosing your color in the drawing palette at the top, where it will show you what your brush looks like in that color. And this is what it looks like using the brush I set randomly in the Brush Studio just now. I can now write the letters new kind of rough. There's another new function added to this Brush Studio, and it's called Color Option. What it does is that it changes the color according to the inclination and writing pressure of your Apple Pencil. I just moved the hue slider of Stamp Color Jitter more towards the right, but to simply explain what it is, it's the function that changes the colors you trace. You can see here, but the color differs from dots by dots. It's a bit difficult to explain, but when you actually write something and enlarge, you will see what I mean. Just like this, the color changes randomly. And the more you move the hue slider mentioned earlier towards left, the higher the discoloration rate from orange to blue as an example. What's more interesting is that when you set the hue percentage higher under where it says color writing pressure, depending on the degree of the writing pressure you put with your Apple Pencil, the color changes. Look at this, isn't it amazing? This is so much fun, and I really want you to try this. And using this color writing pressure function, you can make stylish fonts as well, and I'm going to try writing one here. Just like this, you can easily write colorful letters, and these may be good to put on flyers for places like nightclubs and such. But yeah, give it a try when you can. Also, this is a small change, but you can now combine brushes. For instance, let's say we have these two brushes, and when you double select them by swiping horizontally to select multiple, and while doing that, there's a combine button on the upper right, so tap it to combine these two brushes. The combine brush is shown below, and you can see me right here. We have a completely new mystical brush. It seems a bit difficult to get a perfect brush you want to, but you could also customize the combine brush from the Brush Studio again. And here at the upper left, you can customize these two brushes independently. So the process gets a little more complicated, but for those who want to try making your own brush, you could use this combine function to make a new brush. Also, there's another new function where we can import brushes from Photoshop, so I'm going to show you how here. Tap the plus button from the brush library and tap import at the upper right, where it opens your file apps, so you can just access to whichever file you need. You can save your Photoshop brushes onto your iCloud drive in advance, open and choose on Procreate to have them imported to Procreate. The brushes are added to the tab at the upper left here, so if you want to do that, you can just import your brushes from Photoshop and enjoy drawing. Alright, this will be the last part. I'm finally going to introduce you to the animation function. I'm going to create an animation of a rocket taking off like this. But before that, I want to tell you the basics of animation on Procreate 5. When creating an animation, tap the gear icon at the upper left, and you should see a Canvas Assistant inside a Canvas tab, which is a new function. So turn it on, and there will be a bar popping up at the bottom, which is a framing function for animation. But I'm mainly going to use this framing function. For instance, let me first draw an apple. And there's a button that says Add a Frame, so tap it. And the new blank frame is added to the right side. And I'm going to draw another apple again here too, but I will draw it slightly misaligned. Once you're done the drawing, add a new frame again and draw the third apple. Make sure to draw it misaligned somewhat as well, like this, and we'll keep doing this many times. Once you're done with this process, you'll eventually have many frames that can be connected to form a single GIF animation, which would be kind of like a flipbook. And from the tab here, there's a settings button, but when you tap it, you can adjust the frame and speed of your animation. And there's this thing called onion scheme frame below, where you can set a number of your drawings display for a frame before your current one. And below that, we have onion scheme frame opacity, but this is about setting the opacity for the frame before your current one. It gets harder to draw when it's too dark, but if you lower it too much, making it invisible, you won't be able to see what's going on in the back, so make sure to find a good opacity level and keep drawing the next one. We keep adding frames, but it's a hassle to draw one by one, right? So here you could find a copy option. When copying, long tap this Add a Frame button, which will then copy the last frame, letting you have the two of the same drawing. Then select the arrow button to move the last one a bit like this. Long tap the Add a Frame button again, switch to the arrow button and move it. So you could create animation quickly by long tapping the Add a Frame option and moving the last frame using the arrow button. Once you're done, tap the play button on the bottom left to preview. Here, as you can see, I created this animation of an apple falling. You could also adjust the speed from settings later too, so find your preferred speed and set accordingly. Okay, once we got the idea of how this works, we are going to make animation of this rocket. Make sure to change the size and shape according to your preferences and set your drawing, or the rocket in this case, to the starting position. Then, from the gear icon at the upper left, turn the Canvas Animation Assistant function on, where it shows you the tab at the bottom. And while keeping it on the side, we'll copy. When copying, long tap the Add a Frame button. This way, the same layer gets copied. So switch to the arrow button and move the rocket a bit up like this. We'll keep drawing it a little bit misaligned towards up, so long tap Add a Frame, switch to the arrow button, move it up, and we keep repeating this process. Just like this, the rocket is complete. I'm going to click the play button now. It takes off nicely, as you can see. I set it in a way that slowly takes off in the beginning and gradually gets faster. Also, I think it's better to add a few blank layers at last. And from here, go back to the first frame, and we are going to create a rocket with a lot of smoke coming up this time. But this time, there is a brush called Matte Splash from the watercolor category, so we are going to add this brush and start drawing. We are going to draw by setting the color white and brush size small. Copy the first few frames so that the rocket would kind of stay still in the beginning. Then it takes off. And from around the third frame, use this matte splash brush to start drawing smoke. I'm going to tap the play button to see what it looks like as it's almost complete. I like how it takes off in one go. It may be difficult to draw expressing this part of smoke coming out really well. So I think it's better to draw and adjust while checking using the slider. It takes some practice to get better at this part. Okay, lastly, we're going to add a background. When adding it, add a blank layer from the layer panel here and place it at the very bottom. And if you go to the animation frame and tap this blank layer, it should show you a button that says background. And when you tap it, this layer will always be set as a background layer. On a side note, this layer panel on the left and animation tab at the bottom is connected. And we are going to add some stars and space drawings on the background layer. There is a brush called Nebula in the brightness box from Brush Options, which is a perfect brush to draw space, and it's a new brush, so go ahead and try it if you can. Just like this, you can easily draw something like a black hole or a cluster of stars. Once again, the brush is called Nebula. Once you're done, when you look at the layer panel right now, there should be a background layer at the very bottom. And we also have the same background layer here at the animation tab, meaning that the background button is turned on. So this means that the background layer is always placed in the very back and fixed, while we have the animation in front. If you set a background layer, it won't move and will be fixed. One last thing, we're just going to add the ground to complete. Alright, we are done! I think it turns out to be looking really nice. Even though I drew the animation part in detail, you can make a stylish animation even just by drawing the background layer a bit complex too. So try and remember this background layer or background button feature and make use of it. And we are going to export this in animated GIF. From the settings at the upper left, under Share, you should see Animation GIF. So tap it where it will show you its preview. And here too, you can adjust the frame speed by sliding the bar where it indicates seconds to set the final speed, and then tap Export to finish. Now it should be in your camera roll. I think I did it really well, right? And when you export in GIF, it keeps playing over and over like this. You could also export in MP4, but it would only play once, so I suggest exporting in GIF. Alright, that's all for today. It was a long video, but I really want you to watch again if necessary and master Procreate 5. I also want to see your animation works, so feel free to add my name as a hashtag on Twitter and tweet them when you're done. For iPadmate's members, I will share this original layer of Procreate, so go ahead and check them out. Also, there are so many new functions added to brush settings in Procreate 5 too, and I'm hoping to share them once I do some research, so if you are one of my iPadmate's members, look forward to those as well. Okay, that's all for today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.